Hello and welcome. I am Annette Reeder from thebiblicalnutritionist.com, and today it's about what are the different types of grains that you can use to make delicious bread and muffins and food for your family at the dinner table. I'm glad you're joining me. If you haven't already, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it. The bell next to it tells you every time we post new videos. And I have so much I want to teach you about God's recipe for excellent health. And today it's about grains. And so you can't really see it real well, but I have an entire stack of 12 different grains that we're going to talk about so that I can share with you how to use these in your diet, how to share them with your family, and how to get started. So thanks for watching. Now let's go into the grains that are going to make a difference in your health. The first grain I want to share with you is amaranth. Amaranth is a poppy seed size seed. It's a cousin of the quinoa. It's also an ancient grain of the Incas and the Aztecs. Now, the good news is it has a nutty, sweet flavor. And it works in foods like spoon breads, casseroles, loaves, hot cereals, and yet you can also add it into your bread or into any dish, such as muffins or quick breads. You just want to mill it first, or you can use it whole. Our second grain is barley. Now, barley is kind of short and stubby with a hard outer shell. Pearled barley is where the outer layer is removed. Barley flour makes excellent crust and cookies, and it mixes well with rice flour. And now it's the whitest of all the whole grain flours and has a really mild taste. It is no gluten and cannot be used with yeast. Next we have buckwheat. Now, buckwheat is not related to wheat. Buckwheat groats are most often used as a basis for your kasha cereals. The flour is stronger flavored, yet in a good way. And most often you're going to see it in buckwheat pancakes. People brag about their buckwheat pancakes. So waffles, quick breads, it's a lightly colored, lightly textured wheat flour that can be made by placing the hulled buckwheat groats in a blender and blending them into a flour. You can also just mill it yourself. Cornmeal. So cornmeal is made from corn and popcorn. Now, typically cornmeal is used to make cornbread, polenta, some homemade grits, which would be delicious, and some mush, but only use organic corn due to the high percentage of GMO corn that is grown. Einkorn. Einkorn is the earliest form of cultivated wheat. Allegedly, that's what's found in the tombs in ancient Egypt. Now, it has a unique flavor, and it has its own nutritional benefits and genetic makeup. Whereas modern wheat, and the key word there is modern wheat, has 42 chromosomes, einkorn has only 14. Einkorn is about 50% higher in protein than modern wheat, yet its gluten structure makes it tolerable by some people who have a wheat sensitivity. Now, einkorn has been reported to have 25% more of your B vitamins, now specifically B2. So this stimulates metabolism. It also helps with digestion and absorption of fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. So there you go. Now, it also has a higher beta carotene. It also can contain more lutein and vitamin A. Einkorn is also just a great source of minerals, including zinc, manganese, potassium, and phosphorus and iron. Einkorn, it's going to bake very similar to spelt. Moving on to Emmer wheat. Emmer is one of the 3 hulled wheats known in Italy as farro. Its main use is for human food, though it can also be used for animal feed. In recent years, farro has been enjoying a resurgence in popularity among the gourmets and the health-conscious people who sing the grain's praises for high nutritional value, and also they adore just the hearty flavored taste of the farro's wheat. Once again, a lot of stories have been brought in. It's very rich in fiber, protein, magnesium, and vitamins. Emmer is going to contribute to a complete protein diet when it's combined with legumes. So that's going to make Emmer grains and pastas ideal for vegetarians or just really simply anyone who's looking for a plant-based, high-protein food source. Moving on to Kamut. Now, this is one of my favorites. It's a relative of the durum wheat. Kamut is an Egyptian wheat. Kamut can sometimes be used in place of wheat for those who have wheat allergies. Some people will not be able to tolerate and other people will do really well. It produces excellent breads and pastas and baked goods. I love it. It has just a light, slightly buttery flavor and a golden color. In fact, when I make pancakes, I always use Kamut as my grain because when I was trying to switch my family over to healthier grains, then if I made the Kamut pancakes, my kids thought they were getting the Aunt Jemima pancake mix, which they weren't. They were getting Kamut, but they thought it was the same and they thought it was fabulous and they're so glad Mom wasn't doing her freshly milling. Well, I was just disguising it with Kamut, and they loved the pancakes. So definitely it's a win-win. Next is millet. Now millet is a staple food in many countries before the use of rice. Now millet was usually used in America as bird food, but now we realize, wait a minute, that's a health food. That's a high protein. That's rich in calcium and iron and potassium, and it's very easy to digest, and we're feeding it to the birds? No, we need to put it in our food, our morning cereals, your soups, your stews, your puddings. You can just add it whole in your bread. You can mill it into flour. Now, it can be kind of bland, so you just need to realize it's not going to add a lot of flavor, but it is going to add a lot of nutrition. Okay, moving on to oats. Now, oats are just the ideal comfort food, cold weather crop. So it's second to amaranth and quinoa as far as protein, rich in calcium and phosphorus and iron. Now, it has a slightly higher fat content, and that's what produces that sense of warmness when you eat it. Oat flour works really well in cookies and pie crust. Oat flour can be made by placing just your regular rolled oats or your quick oats in a blender and blending it until it's flour-like. And just add it to whatever you want. When we have our conferences, Joyce Rogers, one of our guest speakers, she always says, I've got the secret ingredient for my bread. Everyone loves it. And everyone's on the edge of their seat. What is it? What is it? And she just adds 1 cup of oat flour to replace 1 cup of her regular flour, and it softens her cookies and her breads and her muffins. So there you go. That is the secret to just even more yummy food. Pumpernickel is the next. True pumpernickel is actually ground rye flour. Most commercial pumpernickel breads, they have a white flour base with added rye flour for color and flavor. Quinoa. Traditionally, quinoa is grown in the Andes. The quinoa plant, it bears these tan grains about the size of sesame seeds, so extremely tiny. Quinoa is very similar to amaranth nutritionally, and it yields a fluffier texture with a really distinct flavor. Quinoa flour has a stronger flavor, and yet it's always better if it's mixed with other flours. Quinoa is a great replacement for rice in your regular dishes. So in the Healthy Treasures cookbook, we have several delicious recipes including quinoa. Rice. So rice is quickly becoming the most popular grain due to the rise in gluten intolerance. Rice is mostly thought of in the varieties of white and brown. Now, this is far from reality since rice comes in 18,000 different varieties. We tend to eat a very monoculture here in America. Even brown rice comes in 7 different brand colors such as white, light brown, speckled, brown, red, and variable purple and purple black. I mean, just so many varieties. The design of rice is the same as wheat. It has the outer covering known as the bran, it has also the endosperm, and it has the germ. So it's going to have lots of fiber, vitamin B, minerals, and protein. The endosperm, which also includes the carbohydrates, and it's going to give you even more protein and B vitamins. And then also, like I said, in the germ, that's where you get the highest amount of vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients. So with all of these nutrients, rice can easily move from a side dish to the main course. It's just in itself, it's a complete protein with all of the amino acids present. So rice and rice flour, flour made with rice from brown rice, it can just be kind of gritty sometimes depending how well it's milled. And the texture, the taste can be a little bit odd, but it's excellent for thickening gravies and sauces. Your baked products made from a rice flour, they tend to be crumbly. And so brown rice flour works really well when it's mixed with a barley flour. Now, all brown rice flour should be stored in the refrigerator because we want to preserve the oil that's in the bran. Spelt. Spelt is believed to be among the most ancient of cultivated wheats. It's higher in fiber and protein than your regular wheat, and it's very easy to digest. Now, I just love the flavor of spelt. It's, many people who have wheat and gluten sensitivities can find spelt to be well tolerated. It just has a nutty flavor and just a really sweet smell to it when it's baked. Now the gluten content is more fragile than wheat, so it should be kneaded less than yeast recipes. Triticale is a hybrid grain that is a cross between wheat and rye. So it imparts a very mild rye flavor into your baked goods. So these are the grains that I wanted to share with you today. I hope I've inspired you to try some new ones, mix them up. Now what you're hearing a lot of is this grain is good if it's mixed with this grain. So even if you have a wheat flour base, add in some other grains to it. One time when I just added the millet whole seeds into my bread, you know, it was a half and half decision result, because half the family thought, oh, this is lovely, I like it. And the other half was like, what do I keep biting into? So it kind of had a mixed review. But it's fun to play with it. So a really good whole wheat bread is to do half spelt and half kamut. Now you have to kind of play with the water, the percentages, because they absorb water differently and their kneading is different. But the flavor is amazing. So half spelt and half kamut is just the most delicious bread ever. And then adding in, you could add in a tablespoon of rye, and when you mill in your grains, you could add in a little bit of quinoa into it. I'm looking at my grains that are sitting here next to me. I have quite a few. So you could, like I told you, you could add in your oats, and these are just my oat groats. This just looks like a wheat, kernel of wheat, you know, so they all look very similar. Anyway, I hope I've inspired you to try new grains, new flavors, new textures, and really expand what you've been using your grains for. So this is Annette Reeder from thebiblicalnutritionist.com. Thanks for watching, and be sure and hit the like, the subscribe, and I can't wait to read your comments. I answer almost every one of those comments myself, and I love talking to you. Thanks for watching, and remember, God loves you. He's loved you from the moment of conception.